So here's week 1 of working with my mare Jazzy, who was my draw for the Extreme Mustang Makeover 2020 in California. This is day 1, and this day we were just getting to know each other. I pretty much hand-fed her all of her meals out of my hand, and just letting her know that it's okay for me to be in her personal space. She's really head shy. She didn't like things being up around her face, and she would kind of touch my hand and jump back a little. Here's the next day. Decided to start working her in our round pen. I noticed she's a little bit on the lazy side, needs a little bit more pressure to keep her going. I'm really happy with how she's moving. She looks like she's a nice strong mover, make a great horse for someone who wants to do trail rides or even work cattle. So here I am just changing her directions, moving her feet in the way I want her to move them. Some people call this joining up. I don't really have a name for this, but it gets them connected to you a little bit more. And when I'm doing this and changing the horse's direction, I always like to use a single word that tells them that I want them to turn, and I've always been taught to tell them here. So my other riding horses know when I say here that they go ahead and turn around already, and I'm starting to use that cue here a little bit to get it in her brain, but she's doing really well with turning. Now here she didn't really pay attention, so I had to up the pressure on her. And she finally figured out what I was asking. But my round pen has a lot going on. I have horses out in the pasture just on the other side of the fence, and there's horses down below those trees. So she has a lot to look at. So this next clip is a little interesting. This was my biggest mistake, and I wasn't feeling well. You can see I'm sitting down with my ice vest on, and her halter was extremely tight. So I was really wanting to capture her and get it off, and you see she just got too much pressure and went flying over our panel. So fortunately, she was not hurt. Our panels were fine. That's kind of a low spot right there where the panel doesn't quite meet the requirements because of the buildup of the ground. So she just kind of saw a way out of that pressure and went over the fence. But fortunately, I was able to get on one of my riding horses and kind of sort her back into the pen, which wasn't too difficult. She was really easy about that, and we fixed it up and began working in there again, and so far so good.
Hold on, before we put that back in.
So I believe this is the next day, kind of working with things touching her back, and she never once freaked out about me throwing this lunge line over, or lunge whip over her back. This is kind of how I got to touching her. I would work my hand up the lunge whip and just get closer and closer to her until finally I could touch her shoulder. And it took me a few days of continuing to do that before I could finally just walk up without the lunge whip and touch her shoulder. I'm releasing the pressure when she goes ahead and looks at me and is a little less tense in her body. She wants to step away right there, but she gives me a good look and I believe she starts licking, so I step away. You can see from another angle she doesn't really care very much about this being up on her. She's a little funny with her head. She's a little head shy when I go to touch her head with the lunge whip and now even with my hands. I was finally able to get her tag off. I didn't get a video of it because I was the only one out there, but she did really well and those things are tied on there pretty well. Here I'm using my riding horse to pony her because she's a little sticky on the ground to lead, and I just had better leverage with ponying her. She's not dallied to my saddle or anything. I have control of how far or how close she is and can release her any time. But I have had and I've seen horses come up over the person when you're ponying, so I'm wearing my protective vest. But she ended up doing really well with this, and it took her a little bit to kind of figure out what I was asking and to get used to my gelding I have there. But just after this one session, she's been leading well ever since. She's not sticky on the ground anymore, and I haven't ponied her again. When she steps forward, you could see the tightness on that rope goes loose, so she does get that pressure and release as if I was on the ground, which kind of trains her brain to know that if I step forward, I get the release, and that's a good thing, and that's what I'm supposed to do. And she finally figured it out and started walking really well. So after ponying, I left her to stand tied. I believe this is one of the most important things. She's just tied with a simple burglar's knot, which can be released very easily, but she had no issue with this at all. Here she is standing on a tarp, first time walking right up to it and stood on it. She didn't even care it was there. And here is her first time saddling. I use my English saddle. It's a little lighter and easier for me to move around. I already got the pad on here. I pretty much did the exact same thing with the pad as you'll see me doing with the saddle. Approach and retreat, let her kind of sniff it. You can see she's extremely curious as to what it is. Here I am just kind of making the motion as if I was going to put it on her, seeing if she's comfortable with that. And since she didn't react to it, I gave her a release. Did the same thing, and since she was so comfortable with it, I went ahead and put it on her back. And you could see she kind of reacted there. The buckle on the end of the girth kind of hit her in her leg, made her a little nervous, but otherwise she did really well. Here's after I got the saddle on. It took about 20 minutes of doing all the same thing, but I took her through my trail course, which she did really well. Didn't even look at any of the obstacles, or she went through everything first time. Here's her first time looking at my trailer outside of being ran into it by
Good
the
girl.
BLM people.
Is that different? Load up.
I'm giving her a cue here. The cue I give is just to load up. I'm not putting any pressure on her face. I want it to be all of her own doing, and if she wants to back up, that's fine. She just can't turn around. But other than that, she's allowed to move around and back up if she feels like she needs to. I do have grain there, though she really didn't know what grain was. But just seeing if it would be kind of enticing to get her in the trailer. And she finally figured it out and loaded up and did really well. I'm really happy with this little horse. In just 1 week, she's come a very long ways. I hope to be getting her out to some other locations pretty soon, but I'm very excited to start riding and start building that partnership and seeing how far along we can get. Thanks for watching, and follow along for more, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to learn more about the Mustang Heritage Foundation, go ahead and check out their website, which is linked below as well.